The Souls series, comprised of Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, the soon-to-be-released Dark Souls 3, and Bloodborne, which despite its name is just a Souls game where soul has been replaced with blood, shields have been replaced with pistols, and helmets have been replaced with top hats. These games can be a tough sell to a person who knows nothing about the series, and until a few months ago, that was me. From the titles of the games to the box art and screenshots, everything about these games just seemed completely generic and uninteresting to me. And who wants to waste their time trudging around as another random, nondescript knight in a dull, low-budget hack-and-slash game set in a cookie-cutter dark fantasy world? But my opinion quickly changed in October of 2015 when I watched Dan and James of Extra Credits begin playing Dark Souls while explaining the brilliance of its design. Dark Souls was already sitting unplayed in my Steam library, having come in a forgotten bundle I had bought at some point, so I decided to give it a go. My eyes were opened. I was immediately hooked. In the 4 months since then, I've completed Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition on the PC, Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin on the Xbone, Bloodborne on the PS4, and I've now gone all the way back to the beginning and am playing through Demon Souls on the PS3. Most of these games have been out for years. It turns out they're some of the best games I've ever played, and I almost passed them by. I don't want you to make that mistake, so let's talk a little bit about what's so great about Souls games. If you've got a friend who won't shut up about the Souls series, then you probably know the first reason they're great: the difficulty.
You lose your souls. All of them. Over and over again.
Some say it's a return to the brutal difficulty of early 80s games. I completely disagree. Those games are often difficult due to poor design, bad controls, or just because they've been developed with an arcade machine mentality. Wiser people say that Souls games are difficult but fair, and I think that's a pretty good way to put it. But what does that mean exactly? When Demon Souls was given away to PlayStation Plus subscribers a few years back, I gave it exactly one chance, knowing nothing about it. I wandered around on a castle wall whacking guys with a sword until I died. When I discovered that all of the enemies had returned and I'd lost all the souls I'd collected — souls are the game's currency, by the way — I quit and didn't come back. What I failed to realize is that I now knew the enemies' tricks, knew where they were hiding to ambush me. It would be a cakewalk back to the place where I died, at which point I could continue with not only all the souls I had dropped, but the new ones I'd acquired along the way. If an enemy ever seems too tough, I can try running past him, or try going somewhere else until later. If I die, I may be frustrated momentarily, but I can generally rest in the knowledge that it was a lack of skill on my part that did me in, not cheap attacks or unfairness in the game's design. As you learn the enemy's tells and patterns, learn to see when they're winding up for an instant kill, and to use that time to sneak around and stab them in the back, not only will you eventually succeed, but it will feel like a huge triumph when you do. Succeeding at Souls games is like being a good race car driver. You have to memorize the ideal path to take through repetition, learn when to slow down and when to floor it, and if you ever get careless, know that you're going to die spectacularly with no one but yourself to blame. Once you understand this, you're ready to love the Souls games. But it's not all running through the same area, fighting the same guys until you die. That's the addictive paradox of Souls games. Balanced with the constant crushing setbacks is the exhilarating feeling of constant progress. Say you've run through the same area a dozen times, gradually improving your strategy. Each time you die, you drop your souls on that spot and return to the last bonfire you rested at. But you don't lose any items, weapons, or armor you found. And if you make it back to the bonfire with your souls, you can use them to level up, which permanently increases your stats. But more significantly, eventually you'll find a new bonfire, which becomes your new respawn point. You'll make it to the far side of that locked door you couldn't open earlier, or a ladder you can kick down, or an elevator you can activate, which creates shortcuts to circumvent difficult areas that you no longer have to fight through. In Dark Souls 2, there are even places that are completely dark until you work your way through with a torch, lighting permanent fires one by one, gradually illuminating the area. And once again, the difficulty of the game makes it so that when you succeed at these things, you feel a real sense of accomplishment. A discussion of Souls games wouldn't be complete without acknowledging the brilliant combat system at their core. There are many ways to play, but the basic format is a shield in one hand and a weapon in the other. Blocking is paramount, and striking when your opponent is off balance is key. Use arrows or spells from a distance. Poison tough enemies and wait for them to keel over. Finding the method of combat that works best for you is part of the fun. The next thing that's so great about the Souls games doesn't sound like a plus at first. There are no save slots. Each character has exactly one save file, and it automatically saves after every kill, every death, every consumable item you use by accident. You can't kill the blacksmith just for giggles, then load the game back up if you regret it. If you kill the blacksmith, he's going to be dead for the rest of the game. That's the choice you made. This is freeing in a really important way, since you never find yourself wishing you had quick-saved before you died. In games like Half-Life 2, Mass Effect, or Dragon Age, there's really no weight given to your fighting skill or the choices you make. If you say the wrong thing or waste all of your ammo, you can just pretend it didn't happen and load your last save file.
I thought you were a hero. Heroes don't do things like this. I wish I'd never met you.
But in a Souls game, if your pockets are loaded with souls you haven't spent and you find yourself locked in a room with a giant monster who looks like somebody turned him inside out, your heart rate increases. You have something to lose, and it brings you focus in a way that most games are incapable of. Another great thing about Souls games is what I can only describe as honest level design. If you can see a castle in the distance, or an unreachable path below or above you, that's not just decoration to make the world seem bigger. You can bet on eventually looking back from that location with a sense of accomplishment. Additionally, most areas are seamlessly interconnected with multiple paths, and collectible items you've yet to pick up appear as bright glowing orbs that help you track where you haven't been. On top of that, the game worlds are huge. With the possible exception of Bloodborne, which is short only in comparison to the Dark Souls games, you can easily spend 100 hours before completing each game. Towards the end of my Dark Souls 2 playthrough, I thought back on areas I'd visited in the beginning and thought, wow, was that area in this game or the last one? I can't even remember how to get there. While playing a Souls game, you might get the feeling that you've been dropped into a detailed, fully formed world that you know little about, and that's true. One of the great things about Souls games is that they have deep lore, but only if you care to learn it. In many games, the lore is forced on you in long cutscenes or lengthy conversations. In Souls games, it's mostly by reading item descriptions and repeatedly talking to NPCs that details about the history of the world and its citizens slowly emerge. There's also a huge internet community of Souls fans who compile info and theories into wikis for you to explore. But that kind of thing's not for everybody, and none of it is necessary to enjoy these games. One of the most brilliant aspects of the Souls formula is how they've created online multiplayer that everyone can enjoy. Players can leave helpful messages for other players, which everyone can vote on. These notes may warn you of an ambush or clue you in on a hidden passage or a chest that's actually a mimic. You can see ghostly images of other players running around, fighting, and resting at bonfires. Bloodstains are left behind when a player dies, which serve as a warning for difficult spots, and interacting with them shows the final few seconds of that player's life. Love challenging others to a duel to the death? Invade another player's world and hunt them down. Like this guy that invaded me. Tap out or D13, which I assume is supposed to be pronounced tap out or die. He didn't tap out. I'm not exactly sure what he was doing, but then he died. Need help with a tough boss? And you will. Summon another player to come to your aid. Like these two guys that helped me with this boss. They completely decimated him before I even really had a chance to contribute. You can't interact beyond simple gestures, and they return to their own realm once the fight is over, so no 12-year-olds can cuss you out for being a noob. Volunteering to help others with boss fights is a great way to get practice too. Even introverts like myself can enjoy these features, which are arguably the most defining characteristic of the Souls series. Paired with the online features, the thing that's given the Souls game such longevity is undoubtedly New Game Plus. It's almost assumed you'll want to start over with your levels and equipment intact once you finish. On a second playthrough, you can focus more on helping others if you like, or on decimating them in PvP combat. Keep finding better gear or try different combat styles. New Game Plus is why there is still a large community of players in-game for all of the Souls games, all of the time. And finally, no Souls game would be complete without suspiciously evil laughter at the end of almost every conversation with an NPC. You realize I can hear you do that, right? Trustworthy. There's a lot more I could say about what makes Souls games great, but I hope I've said enough to encourage you to try them yourself. If you already love Souls games, why not share this video with a friend who hasn't seen the light? And be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching.
I'm fine. I think... No. I'm fine. Really, I am.